Okay, so it's time to turn in the artwork that you've created using Adobe Illustrator and your reference graphic from Photoshop. So you're going to follow these instructions, and I'm going to demonstrate those now. Please understand, these need to come in pairs. They need to come in this order: image and then your original Adobe file. I don't need them in a particular order vertically, but they do need to come in pairs. So let's take a look at my example folder that I've created that's got some work in it. So this may be sorted in some other way, but by sorting it by name, they're actually in chronological order if they're done correctly. So let's take a look here. I'm going to open up, I've already got both of these programs open, which makes things go a little bit quicker. However, we don't need sample graphic. You've already turned that in. They all look the same, so let's move to the next thing. You may or may not have done the recolored circles, but if you did, anything that you worked on, any examples, even if they're incomplete, should be turned in. So this sample graphic recolored, I'm going to open it. Now, in order to keep everything straight, the first thing I'm going to do is do File and Save As, and save it with today's date, so that I can have all the files together that need to be turned in. So I'm going to change this to 12/08. Now, because I'm going to be doing that a lot, I'm actually going to copy that text so I can just paste it in. Once you save the file as a separate file, then exporting becomes a lot simpler. So export as. Now for the Illustrator files, they can have transparency around them, and I want to make sure of that. If it's a big graphic like this, you might want to use artboards. If you leave that off for all of them, that's just fine. But for anything that's got like almost the entire thing, it'll keep those margins around your graphic. So I'll use it this time. This is where your options are. You just need to set them once, but you do need to make sure and change this to the high resolution. Art optimized is better. We don't have any text, so we want those nice smooth gradients as opposed to sharp, clear text. And then the background has to be transparent. That's it. Let's go to the next one. I've got a shape sampler. We did this on a day learning about pucker and bloat and a few other things. So yes, that counts. Anything you spent time on that you can show me what you did. So I'm going to first, of course, save as. I'm going to change this date to today's date code and save it. Then I'm going to export as and then PNG. Now you may need the first time to actually select PNG. Please don't give me Autodesk or any other formats. PNG is the one that has that transparency. Don't need to use artboards, and I don't need to make changes here as long as they're correct. Double check. 300 pixels per inch, art optimized, transparent. Perfect. And things go pretty quickly from here. Just work your way down. Okay, so I've got emoji 1. I guess I finished emoji 2 first. So doesn't matter. You can give me number 2 first, as long as I get the pairs. So File, Save As, change the date code, and then export it. Got emoji 1, open, save as, change the date code. It wouldn't hurt to check your layers as you're doing this. I'll be spot checking those and making sure that you were naming your layers as you go. Let's see what we have so far. So looking here, I've got all of my 12/8, and because I'm sorting by name, they're in pairs. So let's take a look. I have not finished emoji 1, so I know I need to export that still. File, export as. Change the date code. Oh, I don't, yeah. What's left? Well, my monster. Now this I made back on 11/27, but this is a JPEG and it is not cropped. So I'm going to open up Photoshop now. This is cropped and leveled, and I used it as my reference. So I'm going to save as, change the date code for my one Photoshop file. This is also the one that's going to be different. So when I do export, I'm not going to do the quick export. I'm going to do export as and make sure that I've selected JPEG. If it's on 6, that's great. And I've got one more. I have my ELAR Monster by Arabella. So this is the featured, and when I open that up, you can see I've got the reference graphic visible, and I've got these things over here and a little mini version. We don't want any of that. So I'm going to hide the reference. And if I've got two tails and they're overlapping, maybe you make a slight adjustment here so we can better view your creature. So there we go. We got all the things we need. They're all named and layered. So let's save this as something with today's date code. And of course, exporting it with transparency. Next, we turn it in.